If you're trying to make your 1, 4, 5 chord progressions sound more interesting, then chord substitutions are one of the best ways to do that. But one of the most confusing things about chord substitutions is how to use diminished chords. The diminished chord shape shows up all the time when you start to move chords up and down the fingerboard, but it's really hard to know why they're working or even exactly where to put them. So in this lesson, I want to show you just a couple of specific ways to use diminished chords so that you can make your chord progressions move in a really smooth way through the changes, but still understand why you're doing what you're doing and how to apply it to other songs that have the same kinds of chord progressions. And when you're done with this lesson, if you'd like to learn more about chord substitutions, everything from which chord voicings you should know, to how to connect those voicings up, to how to apply the chord moves you make out of those voicings, to various kinds of 1, 4, and 5 blues standards, I encourage you to check out my upcoming workshop, Chord Substitutions, happening this Saturday, March 30th. You can learn more and sign up at the link below or the link on screen. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate these ideas on the 8-bar blues Trouble in Mind, and I'm going to play it in the key of G. I recently did another lesson where I took the same chord progression and the first 4 bars of Trouble in Mind and showed how to use inversions of the 1, 4, and 5 to start playing chord substitutions on an 8-bar blues. And you can go check out that lesson at the link below. Just to quickly recap, the first 4 bars of Trouble in Mind go from 1 to 5, and then back to 1, and then to 4. But by using chord substitutions and inversions, you can end up with this. And so if you go check out that lesson, I walk through all those chord shapes and how to play them and why they go together the way they do. Now that already goes a long way towards making 1, 4, and 5 sound more interesting. But in this lesson, I want to focus on 3 places where you can make things even smoother and cooler by adding diminished chord voicings into the mix. So for instance, if we're playing these chords for the first 2 bars, G6, G with the 3rd and the bass, A minor 7, and D7 with the 5th and the bass. Often you'll hear someone doing this instead. And when you hear that, it's this that's adding more rhythmic interest and making the transition sound smoother. So the question is, what's that? And the answer is basically, it's a diminished chord. Now it's only got 3 notes, and a full diminished chord voicing should have 4 notes. And so this would be the root, and then the diminished 7th, the flat or minor 3rd, and the diminished 5th of B flat. But we're only playing 3-note chord voicings on the 6th, 4th, and 3rd string, so we're going to leave out this note. And what you hear is this. And there's this sense that it's resolving, it's taking you to the A minor. And there are a couple of ways you can think about this. You don't have to think about it at all. You can just play it and go, that sounds cool. But if you want to know why it's working, there are a couple of ways you can think about it. One is that you're taking the outer voices, right? The bass note and what's basically the melody note or the highest note of the chord, and you're just moving them down by half step or chromatically to get you to the A minor 7. That's kind of the, it sounds good, so let's do it way of thinking about it. And the other way is to look at it like this chord, a diminished chord, wants to resolve by half step. It wants to either resolve down or it wants to resolve up. And in either way, you've got this common tone here. You've got a G in this diminished chord, and then you've got a G in this A minor 7 chord. You also have a G not only in this diminished chord and the A minor 7, but also in the G over B that we're going to. So this note G is called a common tone, meaning it's held in common between this B flat diminished and this A minor 7. It's also held in common between this B flat diminished and this G over B. So whichever direction you go in, you get this feeling of resolution because you have this one note held in common, and then you get these other two notes moving chromatically or by half step, and they're moving in the same direction. So this gives us a sense of resolution, and so does this. They're slippery things, diminished chords, but if you can keep in mind that they're doing this resolution idea and that they're resolving by either by half step or they're holding a common tone, those two things are usually going on at the same time. So that means if we're going down from G over B, now we can have this motion that takes us to A minor 7 and to D. So all together, instead of just playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we now have which is very satisfying. So once we've played the first couple bars of Trouble in Mind, the next thing is to play bars 3 and 4 to get from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. So we could now use the B flat to climb up by playing G6, D7 over A, B flat diminished, G over B, and land on the C chord. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, like that. So we've got the first couple bars, 1 to 5, and now 1 going to the 4 chord, C6. And that leaves us with one more place we can use diminished, and that's to get from the 4 back to the 1. If we're on the C, and the next place we need to get to is back to G, we could use a C sharp diminished to take us up to G. And again, it's a kind of common tone resolution, this time with a note that we're not actually seeing, because again, the full 4-note version of this chord would involve the root, the diminished 7th, the flat or minor 3rd, and the flat or diminished 5th. So there's a G, which is held in common between this C sharp diminished chord and this G7 chord with the 5th and the bass. The full version of this G chord with 5, 3, and flat 7 would be to include the root on top. So that's a resolution. So we can have C, C sharp diminished, and G. And so that means we can start off on G, use diminished down to A minor to D7, and then we can climb up G, D, B flat diminished, G over B, C6, C sharp diminished, G7. And that gives us the whole first 4 bars of the tune. So the important thing to keep in mind is first how these diminished chords connect one chord up to the next, and after that, how each set of chord combinations is specifically taking you from one chord to the next. The point is not to learn these chords in isolation, but to learn them as a series of moves so that you're thinking, oh yeah, this is a move that gets me from 1 to 5. This is a move that gets me from 1 to 4. This is a move that gets me from 4 to 1. So whether you're playing Trouble in Mind or not, you've got this collection of basically chord licks that will work to get you from the 1 to the 4, the 4 to the 1, the 1 to the 5, the 4 to the 5, whatever you got to do. You'll have a vocabulary of chord moves, and that's something that you can take with you and plug into whatever kind of tune you're playing. You may need to make a few adjustments as far as the direction or the sort of rhythmic quality of what you're doing, but basically these moves are portable and you can take them from tune to tune and use them however you want. Now, when you're done with this lesson, if you would like to learn more voicings, more chord moves, and spend more time applying them to different kinds of songs and seeing how that's done, Check out my upcoming workshop on chord substitutions this Saturday, March 30th. You can learn more and sign up at the link below or the link on screen. In the meantime, hope you enjoy working on this lesson. If you've got a question about chord substitutions, please leave it down below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.